I remember the exact moment everything fell apart. Not the day, not the hour, the exact moment. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in February. I was sitting in my apartment in downtown Chicago, ice pack on my left knee, phone in my right hand, scrolling through Instagram like I always did after home games. We had just beaten the Celtics by 12 points. I dropped 28 points, 7 assists, and the game-winning three-pointer with 40 seconds left on the clock. The United Center was still ringing in my ears, the crowd chanting my name, the rush of adrenaline that made me feel untouchable. Then I saw it, her profile, a new post, 6 photos, Santorini, Greece, whitewashed buildings against that impossible blue sky, wine glasses catching golden hour light, and her, smiling wider than I had seen her smile in months, wearing a white sundress I had never seen before, wearing the silver necklace I gave her for her birthday last year. And standing next to her, his arm draped casually over her shoulders, was Marcus, her ex-boyfriend, the guy she told me was ancient history, the guy she swore meant nothing anymore. The caption read, "Sometimes you need to get away to remember what matters." I stared at that screen until my eyes burned. I read the caption 17 times. I counted. I zoomed in on every photo, looking for some explanation that would make this make sense. I checked the date, posted 4 hours ago, which meant she took these photos this afternoon, which meant she was there right now, which meant she had been planning this trip and never said a word to me. My phone buzzed. A text from her. "Hey babe, long day, going to bed early, love you." I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I sat there in the dark of my apartment, the ice pack melting against my knee, and I tried to piece together when this started. When did she stop being the woman I thought I knew? When did I stop being enough? We met 3 years ago at a charity gala in Los Angeles. I was 25, in my 3rd year in the league, finally starting to make a name for myself. She was 23, working in fashion marketing, beautiful in a way that made you forget how to speak. We connected instantly. She laughed at my terrible jokes. She didn't care about the money or the fame, or at least, that's what I believed. For 2 years, it was good. Real good. She came to my games. I flew her out to away cities when I could. We talked about the future, marriage, kids, building something that would last beyond the basketball. But this season was different. The expectations were higher. The schedule was brutal. 82 games, plus practices, plus film sessions, plus media obligations. I was barely home. When I was home, I was exhausted. We started fighting more. Little things at first. I forgot to call after a game. She made plans without telling me. I didn't like the way some guy looked at her at a restaurant. She said I was being paranoid. Then the arguments got bigger. She wanted more attention. I told her I was giving everything I had. She said basketball was my real girlfriend. I said she didn't understand the pressure I was under. She said I didn't understand how lonely she felt. 2 weeks ago, she told me she needed space. I thought she meant a few days. I thought she meant she wanted me to try harder. I sent flowers. I sent long texts apologizing for being absent. I promised to do better after the season ended. She responded with short, cold messages. "Thanks. I appreciate that. Let's talk later." I didn't know later meant Santorini with her ex. I grabbed my phone and opened our text thread. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to call her. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to ask her what the hell she was thinking. I wanted to beg her to come home. Instead, I threw my phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, screen cracked but still glowing. I sat there in the silence, breathing hard, trying to keep my chest from exploding. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I did everything right. I worked harder than anyone. I earned every dollar, every accolade, every moment of respect. I sacrificed time, energy, relationships, peace of mind. And for what? To sit alone in a $1 million apartment, looking at photos of the woman I loved choosing someone else? My phone buzzed again from across the room. I didn't move. I knew it was her. Probably some bullshit excuse. Probably some half-truth designed to keep me on the hook while she figured out what she really wanted. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the Chicago skyline. The city was still awake. Cars moving through the streets, lights glowing in apartment buildings, people living their lives completely unaware that mine was falling apart. I thought about my teammates, about the guys in the locker room who talked about their wives and girlfriends like they were trophies, about the ones who cheated on road trips and laughed about it over beers. About the ones who told me I was too soft, too trusting, too available. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was a fool for believing in something real. My phone buzzed again, and again. I walked over and picked it up. 5 new messages, all from her. Are you okay? Why aren't you responding? I know you saw the post. It's not what it looks like. Can we please talk? I almost laughed. It's not what it looks like. The oldest line in the book. The same line every cheater uses when they get caught. I typed back one message. Enjoy your trip. Then I turned my phone off and threw it on the couch. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the last 3 years, trying to figure out where I went wrong, trying to figure out if any of it was ever real. By the time the sun came up, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to chase her. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to be the guy who fell apart because a woman broke his heart. I was going to do what I always did. I was going to show up. I was going to play. I was going to win. And I was going to make damn sure she regretted every second of that trip. The next morning, I showed up to practice at 6 a.m., 2 hours early. I ran drills until my legs were screaming. I shot 3-pointers until my arms went numb. I pushed myself harder than I had in months, trying to burn away the anger, the pain, the humiliation. Coach Williams found me on the court at 7:30, drenched in sweat, gasping for air. You good, Carter? He asked, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. I nodded, wiping my face with my jersey. Yeah, coach, I'm good. He studied me for a long moment, then shook his head. You're a terrible liar. I didn't respond. I just grabbed the ball and lined up for another shot. You want to talk about it? He asked. No. You want to keep destroying yourself on an empty stomach before a game day? I missed the shot. The ball clanged off the rim and bounced toward the sideline. I stood there, hands on my knees, breathing hard. Coach walked over and picked up the ball. He held it in his hands, spinning it slowly, watching me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Listen, he said quietly. I don't know what's going on in your life, and I'm not going to push you to tell me, but I've been coaching for 30 years, and I know what a heartbroken man looks like. And son, you've got it written all over your face. I straightened up, jaw clenched. I'm fine, coach. You keep saying that, he said. But Fine don't show up 2 hours early and try to kill himself on the court. Fine don't ignore his phone for 12 hours straight. Fine don't look like he hasn't slept in a week. I looked away. I didn't have the energy to argue. You got a game tonight, Coach said. Against the Lakers, national TV, whole world's gonna be watching. You think you can lock in or you need a night off? I'm playing, I said immediately. Then get your head right, he said firmly. Whatever's eating you, leave it in the locker room. Once you step on that court, it's just you, the ball, and the game. Nothing else matters, you understand? I nodded. Good, he said. Now go eat something, take a shower, and get some rest. I need you sharp tonight. He tossed me the ball and walked away. I stood there alone in the empty arena, holding the ball, staring up at the rafters. This was my sanctuary, the one place where nothing else mattered. The one place where I was in control. I just had to remember that. By the time evening rolled around, the United Center was packed. 18,000 fans screaming, music blasting, lights flashing. The energy was electric. This was what I lived for. This was where I belonged. I went through my pregame routine like always, stretched, taped my ankles, put on my uniform, listened to music in my headphones to drown out the noise in my head. My phone was still off. I hadn't checked it since last night. I didn't want to know if she had called. I didn't want to know if she had texted more excuses. I didn't want to know anything except the score of this game. When I walked out onto the court for warm-ups, the crowd erupted. My name echoed through the arena. Fans held up signs with my jersey number. Kids reached out for high fives as I jogged past. For a moment, I felt normal again, like I could leave everything else behind and just be a basketball player. Then I looked up at the Jumbotron, and there she was, not in person, but her face, her Instagram post, blown up on the massive screen for everyone to see. Some fan account had reposted it with the caption, "Trouble in Paradise for Carter James." My stomach dropped. The noise of the arena faded into a dull roar. I stood there frozen, staring at that image of her and Marcus, smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. The camera cut to me. My face appeared on the Jumbotron. 18,000 people watching my reaction in real time. I forced a smile, waved at the crowd, acted like I didn't just see my world collapse in high definition. But inside, I was screaming. The game was a blur. I don't remember most of it. I remember moving on instinct. I remember the ball in my hands. I remember the sound of the net when I made a shot. I remember the Lakers' defense collapsing on me every possession. I scored 41 points that night, a season high. I went 8 for 12 from three-point range. I had 9 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals. We won by 23 points. The crowd chanted my name as the final buzzer sounded. My teammates mobbed me on the court. Coach Williams clapped me on the back and told me I played like a man possessed. He wasn't wrong. After the game, I sat in the locker room, still in my uniform, staring at the floor. My teammates were celebrating around me, music blaring, laughter echoing off the walls. But I didn't feel like celebrating. I felt empty. My phone was still off, sitting in my locker. I hadn't touched it all day. "Hell of a game, bro," said my teammate Jamal, slapping my shoulder. "You were on fire out there." I nodded. "Thanks. You good, though?" he asked, lowering his voice. "You seemed different tonight." "I'm fine," I said automatically. He gave me a look. "Man, everybody saw that post. If you need to talk." "I said I'm fine," I snapped. He held up his hands. All right, just checking." He walked away, and I was alone again. I reached into my locker and pulled out my phone. I stared at the black screen for a long time, debating whether to turn it on. Finally, I pressed the power button. The screen lit up. Notification after notification. Texts, calls, social media mentions, news alerts, and one voicemail. From her. I hesitated. Then I pressed play. Her voice came through the speaker, shaky and uncertain. "Carter, I know you're mad. I know I should have told you, but it's not what you think. Marcus and we're not together. This trip was planned months ago, before we even had problems. It was just bad timing. I didn't think you'd care. I didn't think it would matter." A pause. "Please call me back. I miss you. I love you." The voicemail ended. I sat there, phone in my hand, feeling absolutely nothing. She didn't think I'd care. She didn't think it would matter. That was the problem. She never thought about how I would feel. She only thought about herself. I deleted the voicemail. Then I opened my messages and typed one sentence. "Don't contact me again." I hit send. Then I turned my phone back off and shoved it in my bag. I stood up, grabbed my things, and walked out of the locker room without saying goodbye to anyone. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay here. Not anymore. The media room at the United Center smelled like stale coffee and ambition. 40 reporters crammed into a space meant for 25, cameras pointed at the podium like weapons, recorders ready to catch every word, every slip, every moment of weakness. I hated press conferences, always had, but they were part of the job, part of the performance. Smile for the cameras, answer the questions, say the right things. Don't give them anything they can twist into a headline. This one was different, though. I could feel it the moment I walked in. Usually, the questions were predictable. How does it feel to win? What's your strategy for the next game? How's the team chemistry? Standard stuff. Easy answers. But today, 3 days after that photo went viral, 3 days after my 41-point game, 3 days after I told her never to contact me again, the energy in the room was different. Hungry. Predatory. I sat down at the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the sea of faces. Some I recognized. Beat reporters who had covered me since I entered the league. Others were new. Tabloid journalists, social media vultures, people who didn't care about basketball. They cared about drama. Coach Williams sat to my right. My agent David stood in the back of the room, arms crossed, watching like a hawk. He had called me twice this morning, warning me to keep it professional, to stay on message, to not let them bait me. I told him I'd be fine. The first few questions were normal. Someone asked about our upcoming game against the Heat. Someone asked about my shooting percentage. Someone asked about a defensive adjustment we made in the second quarter of the last game. I answered on autopilot, gave the standard responses, praised my teammates, thanked the fans, talked about staying focused. Then a hand went up in the third row. A guy I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, cheap suit, smug expression. "Carter," he said, not waiting to be called on. "There's been a lot of talk this week about your personal life. Photos surfaced of your girlfriend on vacation with another man. How has that affected your performance on the court?" The room went silent. Every camera turned toward me. Every reporter leaned forward. I felt my jaw tighten. My hands clenched under the table. Coach Williams shifted in his seat, ready to intervene, but I spoke before he could. "My personal life is personal," I said evenly. "Next question." The guy didn't back down. "But you had a career night just hours after those photos were posted. Some are saying you played angry. Would you say your emotions fueled your performance?" I stared at him. He stared back, pen ready, waiting for me to crack. I played basketball, I said. That's what I do. That's all there is to it. But surely... Next question, I repeated, louder this time. Another hand went up. A woman in the front row. She worked for a major sports network. Someone I had done interviews with before. Someone I thought was decent. Carter, she said gently, like she was doing me a favor. I think what everyone wants to know is, are you okay? You've been under a lot of scrutiny lately, and we all saw that moment on the Jumbotron before the game. It must be difficult to deal with that kind of public attention on something so private. She said it with sympathy, but I knew what she was really asking. She wanted me to break down. She wanted me to give her a soundbite. She wanted me to make this story bigger than it already was. I took a breath, counted to 3, remembered David's words. Stay professional. Don't give them anything. I appreciate the concern, I said slowly, but I'm here to talk about basketball. If you have questions about the game, I'm happy to answer. If not, we can end this now. Coach Williams leaned into his microphone. Let's keep the focus on the sport, folks. Carter's been playing at an elite level all season. That's the story. But they weren't letting it go. Another reporter jumped in before Coach could move on. Carter, your girlfriend posted a statement on social media this morning. She said the photos were taken out of context and that you two are working through things privately. Do you have any response to that? I froze. I hadn't seen any statement. I hadn't turned my phone on since last night. I don't have a response, I said flatly. So you're confirming the relationship is over? I'm confirming that I'm not discussing this. But she said, I don't care what she said, I snapped, and immediately regretted it. The room exploded. Reporters shouting over each other, cameras flashing, everyone scrambling to be the one who got the money, quote. David stepped forward from the back of the room, making a cutting motion across his throat. Coach Williams stood up. We're done here, Coach said firmly. Thank you all for coming. I stood up and walked out, ignoring the shouted questions that followed me down the hallway. David caught up with me in the corridor outside the locker room. He grabbed my arm and spun me around, his face red with anger. What the hell was that? He demanded. They wouldn't stop, I said, shaking him off. So you give them exactly what they want? A reaction? A headline? Do you know how many times that clip is going to play on ESPN tonight? I don't care. Well, you should care, David said, stepping closer. You've got endorsement deals on the line. Sponsors who don't want their brand associated with drama. You keep acting like this and you're going to cost yourself millions. I laughed bitterly. Millions. That's all you care about, isn't it? Not that my life is falling apart. Not that I'm being harassed by reporters about my relationship. Just the money. David's expression softened slightly. He sighed and rubbed his face. Carter, I'm on your side. I am. But my job is to protect your career. And right now, you're making that very difficult. Maybe I don't want to be protected, I said quietly. Maybe I'm tired of pretending everything's fine when it's not. He looked at me for a long moment, then shook his head. Look, I get it. You're hurting, but you can't let them see that. The moment you show weakness, they'll tear you apart. That's how this works. You know that. I did know that. I had seen it happen to other players. Guys who let their personal lives become public spectacles. Guys who lost control of the narrative. Guys who became punchlines instead of legends. What do you want me to do? I asked, exhausted. Lay low, David said. No more interviews unless absolutely necessary. No social media. No public appearances outside of games. Let this blow over. In 2 weeks, no one will remember. I wanted to believe him, but I knew better. The internet didn't forget. The headlines didn't disappear. Once you became a story, you stayed a story until something bigger came along. And what about her? I asked. David hesitated. What about her? She posted a statement. What did she say? He pulled out his phone, scrolled for a moment, then handed it to me. I read the post. It was long. Too long. A carefully crafted PR piece designed to make her look like the victim. She talked about how hard it was to be in a relationship with someone in the public eye, how the scrutiny was overwhelming, how the trip to Santorini was innocent, just a chance to reconnect with an old friend. How she loved me and wanted to work things out, but I had shut her out. How she hoped people would respect our privacy during this difficult time. The comments were split. Half the people believed her. Half called her out for playing games. Some blamed me for being distant. Some blamed her for being manipulative. Everyone had an opinion. I handed the phone back to David. She's lying. Maybe, he said, but it doesn't matter. She's controlling the narrative now. If you don't respond, people will assume she's telling the truth. And if I do respond, I look petty and bitter. Exactly, David said. So you stay silent. You let your game do the talking. You show up, you play, you win. That's how you take back control. I nodded, but I didn't feel convinced. I felt trapped. Damned if I spoke, damned if I didn't. There's one more thing, David said carefully. What? The league called. They want to make sure you're mentally fit to play. There's been some concern about your behavior. I stared at him. My behavior? I had one bad press conference. You had a meltdown on national television, David corrected. And before that, you played one of the most aggressive games of your career. People are worried you're not stable. I'm stable, I said through gritted teeth. Then prove it, David said. Go home. Get some rest. Show up to practice tomorrow like nothing happened. And for God's sake, stay off your phone. He walked away, leaving me standing alone in the hallway. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking again. I didn't go home. I couldn't. The thought of sitting in that empty apartment, surrounded by memories of her, was unbearable. Instead, I drove to the gym, the private facility where I trained during the off-season, the one place where I could be alone, away from cameras, away from reporters, away from everyone. I changed into workout gear and stepped onto the court. The overhead lights flickered on, casting long shadows across the hardwood. The sound of my sneakers squeaking against the floor echoed in the silence. I grabbed a ball and started shooting. Free throws, mid-range jumpers, three-pointers, over and over, until my arms burned and my legs trembled. But no matter how many shots I took, I couldn't stop thinking about that press conference, about the way those reporters looked at me, like I was a wounded animal, like I was entertainment. I thought about her statement, about the lies she told, about the way she made herself the victim in a situation she created. I thought about the last 3 years, about all the times I believed her when she said she loved me, about all the times I chose her over everything else, about all the sacrifices I made to keep us together. And I realized something. I was angry, not just at her, at myself, for being naive, for ignoring the signs, for thinking love was enough. I fired the ball at the basket. It clanged off the rim and bounced across the court. I grabbed another ball, missed again, and again, and again. Finally, I collapsed onto the floor, chest heaving, sweat dripping down my face. I pulled out my phone, turned it on, opened Instagram. Her profile was still there. The photos from Santorini were still up, but now there was a new post, a close-up selfie, her eyes sad, her expression vulnerable. The caption read, "Sometimes the hardest thing is loving someone who doesn't let you in. I hope we can find our way back." The comments were flooded with support, thousands of people telling her she deserved better, telling her I didn't appreciate her, telling her to move on. I scrolled through them, feeling my anger rise with every word. Then I saw a comment from Marcus, her ex. "You've always deserved the world. Glad I could be there for you." I stared at that comment for a long time. Then I opened my own Instagram. I hadn't posted anything in weeks. My last post was a team photo after a win. I typed out a message, short, simple, honest. Sometimes the people you love the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. Lesson learned. I hit post before I could second-guess myself. Within seconds, the notifications started flooding in. Comments, likes, reposts, news outlets picking it up, analysts breaking it down, fans taking sides. I turned my phone off again and lay back on the court, staring up at the ceiling. David was going to kill me. Coach was going to kill me. Hell, I was probably going to kill myself for this later. But right now, in this moment, I didn't care. I was done being silent. I was done pretending. I was done letting her control the story. If they wanted drama, I'd give them drama. And I'd make damn sure I had the last word. The next morning, I showed up to practice like nothing happened. David was waiting for me in the parking lot, pacing back and forth, phone glued to his ear. When he saw me, he ended the call and stormed over. "Are you out of your mind?" he shouted. "Good morning to you too," I said, walking past him. He followed me inside. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Your post has been shared 500,000 times. It's trending on Twitter. ESPN is running a whole segment about it. You've turned this into a circus." "I didn't turn it into anything," I said calmly. "She did. I just responded." "You responded like a child," David snapped. "You made yourself look petty and emotional. Exactly what I told you not to do." I stopped walking and turned to face him. "You know what, David? I don't care anymore. I'm tired of playing by the rules. I'm tired of protecting her. I'm tired of letting everyone else tell me how to feel." "This isn't about feelings," David said. his voice rising. This is about your career, your reputation, your future. My future? I laughed. My future is a bunch of strangers on the internet deciding whether I'm a victim or a villain. My future is sponsors pulling out because I'm not smiling enough. My future is sitting in press conferences and pretending I'm fine when I'm falling apart. That's my future. David opened his mouth to respond, but Coach Williams appeared in the hallway. Carter, he said quietly. My office. Now. I followed him down the corridor, leaving David standing there, shaking his head. Coach's office was small and cluttered. Trophies on the shelves, photos on the walls, a whiteboard covered in plays and strategies. He closed the door behind us and gestured to a chair. I sat down. He didn't sit. He leaned against his desk, arms crossed, studying me. You want to tell me what's going on? He asked. I posted something on Instagram, I said. That's all? That's all? Coach repeated. Son, you just threw gasoline on a fire. You know that, right? I didn't answer. He sighed and sat down across from me. Listen, Carter, I've been around this game a long time. I've seen players go through everything. Injuries, scandals, breakups. And I'll tell you this. The ones who survive are the ones who keep their heads down and focus on what they can control. I am focused, I said. No, you're not, Coach said firmly. You're distracted. You're emotional. And you're letting this situation take over your life. What am I supposed to do? I asked, my voice cracking slightly. Pretend like nothing happened? Smile and wave while she lies to the whole world? Yes, Coach said simply. That's exactly what you do, because at the end of the day, none of this matters. Not the posts, not the comments, not the headlines. The only thing that matters is what you do on that court. That's easy for you to say, I muttered. It's easy because it's true, Coach said. You think you're the first person to get their heart broken? You think you're the first player to deal with drama? Hell, son, half the guys in this league have been through worse. But you know what separates the good ones from the great ones? The great ones don't let it break them. They channel it. They use it. They turn pain into power. I looked down at my hands. He was right. I knew he was right. But knowing didn't make it any easier. I need you sharp, Coach said. We've got the playoffs coming up. This team is counting on you, and I can't have my star player losing his mind over a woman. I'm not losing my mind, I said quietly. Then prove it, Coach said. Get out there. Practice like your life depends on it, and leave this mess behind. I nodded, stood up, started to leave. Carter, Coach called after me. I turned back. For what it's worth, he said. I think you're better off without her. I almost smiled. Almost. Thanks, Coach. Practice was brutal. Coach ran us through drills for 3 hours straight. No breaks, no mercy. By the end, my legs felt like jelly and my lungs were on fire. But it worked. For 3 hours, I didn't think about her. I didn't think about the post. I didn't think about anything except basketball. After practice, I sat in the locker room, drenched in sweat, feeling more like myself than I had in days. Jamal sat down next to me. You good, bro? I nodded. Yeah, I'm good. That post was cold, he said, grinning. I respect it. I laughed despite myself. David wants to kill me. David always wants to kill somebody, Jamal said. But real talk, man. I hope you're okay. That situation looked rough. It was, I admitted. But I'll survive. Damn right you will, Jamal said, clapping me on the back. You're Carter James. You're a killer on the court. Don't let nobody make you forget that. I appreciated the sentiment. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. Because the truth was, I didn't feel like a killer anymore. I felt like a man who just lost everything that mattered. And I had no idea how to get it back. The last game of the regular season always felt different. There was a finality to it. A weight. For some teams, it was the end of the road. For others, it was the beginning of something bigger. For us, it was a stepping stone to the playoffs. We had already clinched our spot. This game didn't matter in terms of standings, but it mattered to me. Because I had decided something in the days leading up to it. Something I hadn't told anyone. Not Coach, not David, not my teammates. Not even my mother, who had called me 6 times in the last week, worried sick after seeing the headlines. I had decided that after this game, I was leaving. Not just the arena, not just Chicago. I was leaving everything. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know for how long. I just knew I couldn't stay. The walls were closing in. The pressure was suffocating. The noise was deafening. I needed to breathe. I needed to disappear. So I booked a one-way flight. Destination unknown. Departure time, 2 hours after the final buzzer. I packed a single bag, clothes, passport, cash. I left my phone charger behind, left my laptop, left everything that connected me to this life. I wanted to be unreachable, untraceable, free. But first, I had to play one more game. The atmosphere in the United Center that night was electric. The fans knew this was the last home game before the playoffs. They showed up loud, wearing our colors, chanting our names. The energy was contagious. Under different circumstances, I would have fed off it, thrived on it. But tonight I felt detached, like I was watching from somewhere outside my body, going through the motions, playing the part. I went through my pre-game routine mechanically, stretched, taped, dressed, put in my headphones and tried to block out the world. In the locker room, Coach gave his usual speech, talked about momentum, talked about finishing strong, talked about setting the tone for the playoffs. The guys were hyped, clapping, shouting, ready to go to war. I sat in my locker, staring at the floor, barely listening. Jamal noticed. He walked over and crouched down in front of me. "Yo, Carter, you with us tonight?" I looked up at him. "Yeah, I'm here." "You sure?" he asked, studying my face. "Because you look like you're somewhere else, man." "I'm good," I said, forcing a smile. "Just focused." He didn't look convinced, but he nodded and walked away. When Coach called us to huddle up, I stood and joined the circle. We put our hands in the middle. Coach said something about brotherhood, about trust, about leaving it all on the court. Then we broke and headed toward the tunnel. The roar of the crowd hit me like a wave as we ran out onto the court. Thousands of voices screaming my name, signs held up in the stands, camera flashes everywhere. It should have felt good. It should have felt like home. But all I felt was hollow. The game started fast. The Nets came out aggressive, pressing us on defense, pushing the pace. They were fighting for a playoff spot. This game meant everything to them. For us, it was just another night. I moved through the first quarter on autopilot, made a few shots, missed a few, got a couple assists, played solid defense, nothing special, nothing memorable, just existing. At the end of the first quarter, we were up by 4. Coach subbed me out for a rest. I sat on the bench, towel over my head, staring at my shoes. "You all right?" one of the assistant coaches asked. I nodded without looking up. The second quarter was more of the same. I went through the motions, hit my marks, did my job, but there was no fire, no passion, no heart. I was a robot running a program. By halftime, we were up by 9. In the locker room, Coach gave another speech. Something about not letting up, about staying sharp, about respecting the game. I tuned him out. I didn't need a pep talk. I needed an exit. When we came back out for the third quarter, something shifted. The Nets went on a run, 10 unanswered points. Suddenly, we were down by 1. The crowd got anxious. Coach called a timeout. He looked at me. "Carter," he said, "I need you to take over. Right now." I nodded. But when I got back on the court, I couldn't. My body moved, but my mind was already gone. Already on that plane. Already somewhere far away from here. I missed an open 3, turned the ball over, got beat on defense. The Nets pulled ahead by 7, then 10, then 15. Coach called another timeout. He was furious. "What the hell are you doing out there? Wake up!" I stared at him blankly. "I'm trying." "You're not trying," he snapped. "You're sleepwalking. Get your head in the game or sit down." He put me back in. I tried. I really did. But it was like I was underwater. Everything felt slow, heavy, disconnected. By the end of the third quarter, we were down by 18. The crowd had gone quiet. The energy had drained from the building. We were supposed to cruise to a win. Instead, we were getting embarrassed on our home court. In the huddle before the fourth quarter, my teammates were frustrated. Jamal was shouting at everyone to lock in. Our center was cursing under his breath. Coach was pacing, trying to figure out what went wrong. I sat on the bench, staring at the scoreboard, feeling nothing. "Carter," Coach said, crouching in front of me. "Last quarter. I need you to be the player I know you are. Can you do that?" I looked at him. For a moment, I almost told him the truth. Almost told him I was leaving. Almost told him I didn't care about this game, this season, this life anymore. But instead, I just said, "Yeah, Coach, I got it." The fourth quarter started, and something in me finally broke open. Not in a good way. In a desperate, reckless, self-destructive way. I started playing like a man with nothing to lose, because I didn't. I drove to the basket with no regard for my body, took contested shots, played overly aggressive defense. I was trying to feel something. Anything. I scored 8 points in the first 3 minutes of the quarter. We cut the lead to 12, then 10, then 8. The crowd started to believe again, started chanting, started hoping. But I wasn't playing for them. I was playing for me, playing to burn it all down before I walked away. With 5 minutes left, I drove hard to the rim and got fouled. Hard. I hit the floor and pain shot through my shoulder. The ref called a flagrant. The Nets player was ejected. I got up slowly, shaking my arm out. Coach called me over. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I lied. I went to the free throw line, made both shots. We were down by 6. The next possession, I hit a 3, down by 3. Then Jamal got a steal and found me in transition. I finished with a layup, down by 1. The building was shaking. The momentum had completely flipped. We were coming back. With 2 minutes left, I stole the ball and went coast to coast for a dunk. We took the lead for the first time since the second quarter. The crowd erupted. My teammates mobbed me. Coach was on his feet, pumping his fist. But I felt nothing, just emptiness. The Nets called a timeout. In the huddle, Coach was ecstatic. "That's what I'm talking about. That's the killer instinct. Now we finish this." I nodded, but inside, I was already gone. When play resumed, the Nets tried to answer. They ran a play for their best scorer, but I jumped the passing lane and stole it. I pushed the ball up the court, had an open lane to the basket, but instead I pulled up from 30 feet and launched a 3. It was a stupid shot, a selfish shot, a shot I had no business taking. It went in. The arena exploded. We were up by 6 with a minute left. The game was over, but I didn't celebrate. I just stood there staring at the basket, feeling absolutely nothing. We won by 9. Final score, 118-109. I finished with 34 points, most of them in the fourth quarter. The media would call it a heroic performance, a clutch comeback, another classic Carter James moment. But I knew the truth. I had checked out. I had given up. And then, in a moment of pure desperation, I had dragged myself and my team across the finish line. Not because I wanted to win, but because I didn't know how to lose. After the final buzzer, my teammates celebrated. High fives, hugs, laughter. I forced a smile, accepted their congratulations, and headed straight to the locker room. I showered quickly, changed into street clothes, and grabbed my bag. The bag I had packed that morning, the one with everything I needed to disappear. Coach caught me on my way out. "Hell of a game, Carter. That's the guy I need in the playoffs." I nodded. "Thanks, Coach." He studied me for a moment. "You sure you're okay? You seemed off tonight." "I'm fine," I said. "Just tired." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Get some rest. See you at practice Monday." I didn't tell him I wouldn't be there. David was waiting for me outside the locker room. He looked relieved. "Great game. That's the Carter we need. You bounced back. That's huge." I kept walking. He followed. "Listen," he said. "I know the last few weeks have been rough, but you're trending in the right direction. The sponsors are happy. The league is happy. Just keep doing what you're doing." I stopped and turned to face him. "David, I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Don't contact me for a few days, maybe a week. I need some space." He frowned. "Space? Carter, we've got playoff prep starting Monday. Interviews, appearances. You can't just disappear." "I'm not disappearing," I lied. "I just need a few days to clear my head." "Where are you going?" "Does it matter?" He stared at me. "Yes, it matters. You're under contract. You have obligations." "I'll be back before the playoffs," I said. "I promise." "Carter." "David," I interrupted. "Please, just give me this." He looked at me for a long time, then sighed. "Fine, a few days. But if you're not back by Monday, I'm sending someone to find you." I nodded. Fair enough. I walked away before he could say anything else. The airport was nearly empty at midnight. I checked in at the counter, got my boarding pass, and headed through security. No one recognized me, no cameras, no reporters, just another traveler passing through. I sat at the gate, staring at the departure board. My flight was leaving in 40 minutes. Destination, San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. A small town I had read about once in a travel magazine. Quiet, remote, far from everything. I pulled out my phone, turned it on one last time. The notifications flooded in immediately. Texts from my mom, calls from David, messages from teammates, social media mentions, news alerts about the game, and one text from her. "I saw the game. You were amazing. I miss you. Can we please talk?" I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, wanted to tell her how much she had hurt me, how much I hated her for what she did, how much I still loved her despite everything. But instead, I just turned the phone off, took out the SIM card, dropped it in the trash. Then I boarded the plane. As we took off, I looked out the window at the city lights below. Chicago, the place I had called home for the last 5 years. The place where I had built my career, my reputation, my life, the place I was now leaving behind. I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know if I'd find it. I just knew I couldn't stay. Not in that city, not in that life, not in that version of myself. So I closed my eyes, leaned back in my seat, and let the plane carry me away. Away from the noise, away from the pressure, away from the pain, towards something I couldn't name, but desperately needed: freedom, peace, truth, or maybe just a chance to remember who I was before all of this, before the fame, before the money, before her, before I became someone I didn't recognize. When I landed in Mexico, the sun was just starting to rise. The air was warm and clean. The airport was small and quiet. No crowds, no chaos, just silence. I grabbed my bag and walked outside. A taxi driver approached, speaking in broken English. I told him to take me to the town center. He nodded and opened the door. As we drove through the winding roads, I stared out the window at the landscape. Mountains in the distance, colonial buildings painted in bright colors, cobblestone streets. It was beautiful in a way that felt untouched by the modern world. The driver dropped me off in the main square. I paid him and stood there for a moment, taking it all in. A church with a pink facade, a fountain in the center, people walking slowly, going about their morning, no one in a hurry, no one staring at their phones. I found a small hotel on a side street. The clerk didn't ask for ID, didn't ask questions, just handed me a key and pointed to the stairs. My room was simple: a bed, a chair, a window overlooking the street, no TV, no Wi-Fi, just four walls and silence. I dropped my bag on the floor and lay down on the bed. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. No games, no practices, no interviews, no expectations. No one telling me who to be or how to feel. Just me, alone, in a place where no one knew my name. I closed my eyes and let the exhaustion wash over me. And for the first time since I saw that photo of her in Santorini, I slept without dreaming. I woke up to the sound of church bells. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. The room was unfamiliar. The light coming through the window was different, softer, warmer. Then I remembered. Mexico, San Miguel de Allende, a town where no one knew who I was. I sat up and looked around the small room. My bag was still on the floor where I had dropped it. My shoes were by the door. The bed was unmade, the sheets twisted from a restless sleep. Even without dreams, my body had fought through the night. I checked the time on the cheap watch I bought at the airport. 9:47 a.m. I had slept for almost 10 hours, the longest stretch of uninterrupted sleep I'd had in weeks. I got up, splashed water on my face, and looked at myself in the cracked mirror above the sink. I looked like hell. Dark circles under my eyes, stubble covering my jaw, hair a mess. But there was something else, something I hadn't seen in a long time, a kind of emptiness, like I had burned through everything inside me, and all that was left was ash. I didn't recognize the man staring back at me. I spent the first day walking. No destination, no plan. Just walking through the cobblestone streets, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do now that I had escaped. The town was beautiful in a way that felt almost unreal. Everywhere I looked, there was color. Pink buildings, yellow walls, blue doors, green shutters. It was like walking through a painting. The streets were narrow and winding, filled with small shops selling handmade crafts, art galleries, cafes with outdoor seating. People moved slowly here. No one rushed. No one looked stressed. It was a different rhythm of life, one I didn't know how to match. I stopped at a small cafe and ordered coffee. The woman behind the counter smiled at me and spoke in Spanish. I didn't understand most of it, but I nodded and handed her some pesos. She gave me a cup and pointed to a table outside. I sat down and watched the square. Families walking together, elderly couples holding hands, street musicians playing guitars, dogs wandering freely. It was peaceful, simple, and it made me feel even more out of place. I pulled out the phone I had bought at the airport, a cheap burner with no apps, no internet, no connection to my old life, just a way to make calls if I needed to. I stared at the blank screen, tempted to turn it on and check in, to let someone know I was okay, but I didn't, because I wasn't sure I was okay, and I didn't want to lie. Instead, I put the phone away and finished my coffee. On the second day, I tried to do nothing. I stayed in my room, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the street below. Voices, laughter, music, life continuing without me. But doing nothing was harder than I thought. My mind wouldn't stop. It kept replaying everything. The photo, the press conference, the text messages, her voice on that voicemail, the look on Coach's face when I walked out, David's warnings, my mother's worried calls. And beneath all of that, a question I couldn't escape. What am I doing? I had run away. I had abandoned my team. I had left everything behind. And for what? To sit in a cheap hotel room in Mexico feeling sorry for myself? I got up and started pacing. The room was too small. The walls felt like they were closing in. I needed to move. I needed air. I walked out of the hotel and headed toward the edge of town, away from the tourist areas, away from the galleries and cafes, toward the outskirts where the buildings were simpler, the streets quieter. I found a trail leading up into the hills. I started climbing. My legs burned, my lungs ached, but I kept going, higher and higher, until the town was just a cluster of colored rooftops below me. At the top of the hill, I stopped and looked out at the view. Mountains stretched out in every direction. The sky was impossibly blue. The air was clean and cool. It was the kind of beauty that should have made me feel something. Peace, awe, gratitude. But I felt nothing, just that same hollow emptiness. I sat down on a rock and put my head in my hands. What was wrong with me? I had everything most people dreamed of. Money, fame, talent, a career that millions would kill for. And yet here I was, falling apart over a woman who didn't love me enough to stay loyal. I thought about my teammates. They were probably in practice right now, running drills, preparing for the playoffs, wondering where the hell I was, wondering if I was coming back. I thought about Coach, the disappointment on his face when he found out I had disappeared, the trust I had broken. I thought about David, the panic he was probably in right now, the damage control he was trying to do, the sponsors he was trying to reassure. And I thought about my mother, the woman who had sacrificed everything to give me a chance, who had worked 2 jobs to pay for basketball camps, who had sat in the stands at every game, cheering louder than anyone, who had believed in me when no one else did. What would she think if she could see me now, sitting on a hill in Mexico, hiding from the world like a coward? I pulled out the burner phone, stared at it for a long time. Then I dialed her number. It rang 3 times before she picked up. Hello? Her voice was cautious. She didn't recognize the number. Mom, I said quietly. It's me. There was a long pause. Then I heard her exhale like she had been holding her breath for days. Carter, she said, her voice breaking. Where are you? Are you okay? Everyone's looking for you. David called me. Your coach called me. I've been worried sick. I'm fine, I said. I just needed to get away. Get away? She repeated. Carter, you can't just disappear like that. You have responsibilities. You have people counting on you. I know. Then why did you leave? I didn't know how to answer that. How could I explain that I felt like I was drowning, that the walls were closing in, that I didn't know who I was anymore? I just needed some time, I said finally. Time for what? To think, to breathe, to figure things out. And have you? She asked. Figured things out? No, I admitted. Not yet. She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Carter, I know you're hurting. I know what that girl did to you. And I'm not going to tell you how to feel or what to do. But running away isn't going to fix anything. You can't heal if you're hiding. I'm not hiding, I said defensively. Yes, you are, she said gently. And I understand why. But sooner or later, you're going to have to face this. You're going to have to go home. You're going to have to deal with what happened. And you're going to have to decide who you want to be on the other side of it. I closed my eyes. She was right. She was always right. I don't know if I can, I said quietly. Yes, you can, she said firmly. Because you're my son. And I didn't raise a quitter. I raised a fighter. So you take whatever time you need. You do what you have to do. But when you're ready, you come home. And you show the world what you're made of. I felt my throat tighten. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby, she said. Now please, for the love of God, call David and let him know you're alive. That man is losing his mind. I almost laughed. I will. Promise me. I promise. We said goodbye, and I hung up. I sat there for a while longer, staring out at the mountains, feeling a little less empty than before. On the 3rd day, I met someone who changed everything. I was sitting in the same cafe, drinking coffee, watching the square, when an old man approached my table. He was probably in his 70s with weathered brown skin, white hair, and kind eyes. He wore simple clothes and carried a wooden cane. He gestured to the empty chair across from me and said something in Spanish. I shook my head. I don't speak Spanish. He smiled and switched to English. I said, "May I sit?" I nodded. Sure. He sat down slowly, placing his cane against the table. He looked at me for a moment, studying my face like he was reading a book. "You are troubled," he said. It wasn't a question. I frowned. "I'm fine." "No," he said gently. "You are not. I can see it in your eyes. You carry a heavy burden." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just looked away. "I used to be like you," he continued, "many years ago, running from something, hiding from myself. I came to this town to disappear, to escape." I looked back at him. "Did it work?" He smiled. "For a while. But eventually, I learned something important." "What's that?" "You cannot run from yourself," he said. "No matter how far you go, you are always there, waiting." I felt a chill run through me. It was like he had reached into my mind and pulled out the exact thought I had been avoiding. "So what did you do?" I asked. "I stopped running," he said simply. "I faced the things I was afraid of, the pain, the shame, the truth, and I discovered that they were not as powerful as I thought. They were just shadows, and shadows disappear in the light." "That sounds easy," I said bitterly. "But it's not." "No," he agreed. "It is not easy. It is the hardest thing you will ever do, but it is also the only way to be free." We sat in silence for a moment. I wanted to dismiss him, to tell him he didn't know what he was talking about, but I couldn't, because deep down, I knew he was right. "What is it you are running from?" he asked. I hesitated. Then, for some reason, I told him. I told him about her, about the betrayal, about the media circus, about the pressure and the expectations, and the feeling that I was losing myself. I told him things I hadn't told anyone. Not my teammates, not my coach, not even my mother. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "You are running from pain," he said. "But pain is not your enemy. Pain is a teacher. It shows you what matters. It shows you who you are." "I don't want to be in pain," I said. "No one does," he said. "But if you avoid it, it will follow you forever. You must turn and face it. You must let it teach you. Only then can you move forward." "And what if I can't?" I asked. "What if it breaks me?" "Then you will rebuild," he said, "stronger than before, because you will know what you are made of." He stood up, picking up his cane. "I hope you find what you are looking for, my friend. But I think you will not find it here. You will find it when you go home." He walked away, leaving me sitting alone with his words echoing in my mind. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what the old man had said, about facing the pain, about going home, about rebuilding. I got up and walked to the window. The town was quiet. The streets were empty. The only sound was the distant hum of music from a bar somewhere. I thought about my life, about the last 5 years, about how I had poured everything into basketball, how I had sacrificed relationships, hobbies, peace of mind, how I had become so focused on being the best that I forgot to be human. I thought about her, about the way I loved her, completely, desperately, blindly. I had given her everything, and when she left, she took a part of me with her. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe I had given too much. Maybe I had lost myself in trying to make her happy. Maybe I had stopped being Carter and started being whoever I thought she wanted me to be. And maybe that's why it hurt so much. Not just because she betrayed me, but because I had betrayed myself. I sat down on the bed and pulled out the burner phone. I stared at it for a long time. Then I called David. He answered on the first ring. "Carter?" "Yeah," I said. "It's me." "Jesus Christ, man. Where the hell are you? Do you have any idea what's going on here? The media is going insane. The team is freaking out. Everyone thinks you've lost your mind." "I'm in Mexico," I said. "Mexico? What the hell are you doing in Mexico?" "Figuring things out." "Well, figure them out faster," David said. "The playoffs start in 5 days. You need to get back here. Now." "I know," I said. "Then what are you waiting for?" I didn't answer right away. I was waiting for certainty, for clarity, for some sign that I was ready. But maybe that was the point. Maybe I would never feel ready. Maybe I just had to decide. "I'll be back tomorrow," I said finally. David exhaled loudly. "Thank God. I'll book your flight. Don't you dare miss it." "I won't," I said. "And David?" "Yeah? I'm sorry for all of this." There was a pause. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. "Just come home, Carter. We'll figure the rest out." I hung up and lay back on the bed. Tomorrow, I would go home. Tomorrow I would face the music. Tomorrow I would start rebuilding. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, I felt something other than emptiness. I felt hope. Not the naive kind, not the desperate kind, but the quiet, steady kind that comes from knowing you've hit rock bottom and realizing you're still breathing. I closed my eyes and let sleep take me. And this time, I dreamed. Not of her, not of the past, but of the future, of who I could become if I stopped running and started fighting. For myself, for my truth, for the man I wanted to be. And when I woke up the next morning, I was ready. The flight back to Chicago felt longer than the one that took me away. Maybe because I knew what was waiting for me. The questions, the judgment, the scrutiny. Or maybe because I was a different person than the one who left. Not better, not fixed, just different. I landed at O'Hare at 6 in the morning. The airport was starting to wake up. Business travelers rushing to gates, families dragging suitcases, coffee shops opening their shutters. Normal life, the kind I had forgotten existed. David was waiting for me at baggage claim. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes, shirt wrinkled, hair uncombed. When he saw me, relief flooded his face. "You look like hell," he said. "So do you," I replied. He almost smiled. Almost. "Come on, we need to talk." We walked to his car in silence. Once we were inside, he turned to me. "Before we go anywhere," he said, "I need to know if you're serious about this, about coming back, about finishing the season. Because if you're going to run again, tell me now." "I can't do another week like the one I just had." I looked at him, really looked at him. This man who had been with me since I entered the league, who had negotiated my contracts, managed my endorsements, protected my brand, who had called me 100 times while I was gone, not because of the money, but because he was worried. "I'm serious," I said. "I'm not running again." He studied my face, looking for doubt. When he didn't find any, he nodded. "Okay. Then here's what you need to know. The media's been brutal. They've been speculating about everything. Mental breakdown, substance abuse, secret relationship drama. Some even said you were quitting basketball. I'm not quitting. I know that. But they don't. So when we get to the facility, there's going to be a press conference. You're going to have to face them. And you're going to have to say something that makes sense. What do you want me to say?" "The truth," David said. "Or at least, a version of it. You needed time to deal with personal issues. You took a few days to clear your head. You're grateful for the support. You're focused on the playoffs. Keep it simple. Don't give them ammunition." I nodded. "I can do that." "And Carter," David said, "whatever you do, don't mention her. Don't mention the trip. Don't mention any of it. That chapter is closed. Leave it closed." "Trust me," I said. "I have no intention of talking about her." The training facility felt different when I walked in. Or maybe I felt different. Everything looked the same. The halls, the locker room, the court. But there was a tension in the air, like everyone was walking on eggshells, waiting to see how I would react. My teammates were already in the locker room when I arrived. The room went quiet when I walked in. Everyone looked at me, some with concern, some with curiosity, some with anger. Jamal was the first to speak. "Look who decided to show up." I stopped in front of my locker. "I know. I'm sorry." "Sorry?" he repeated, standing up. "Man, do you have any idea what you put us through? We're 3 days from the playoffs, and our best player just disappears without a word. You think sorry covers that?" "No," I said. "It doesn't." He shook his head. "We're supposed to be a team. We're supposed to have each other's backs, but you just bailed. You left us hanging." I didn't have a good answer. He was right. I had abandoned them. No matter what I was going through, that was the truth. "You're right," I said. "I messed up. I let you guys down, and I'm sorry. I can't change what I did. But I'm here now, and I'm ready to do whatever it takes to make it right." Jamal stared at me for a long moment. Then he sat back down. "Just don't do it again." "I won't," I promised. The tension in the room eased slightly. A few guys came over and dapped me up. Others nodded in my direction. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. Coach Williams walked in. When he saw me, his expression was unreadable. "Carter, my office, now." I followed him down the hall. His office door closed behind us with a heavy thud. He didn't sit down. He just stood there, arms crossed, looking at me like a disappointed father. "You want to explain yourself?" he asked. "I needed to leave," I said. I couldn't breathe. Everything was closing in on me. I just needed space. "Space," Coach repeated. "You needed space 3 days before the playoffs Do you understand how selfish that sounds? I know. Do you? He asked, his voice rising. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you put your feelings above your team, above your responsibilities, above everything we've been building all season. I looked down. I had no defense. He was right. I'm not asking you to be perfect, Coach continued. I'm not asking you to pretend you don't have problems, but I am asking you to be a professional, to show up, to communicate, to trust the people around you enough to let them help. I didn't think anyone could help, I said quietly. That's because you didn't give anyone a chance, Coach said. You just ran. And you know what? That's the easy thing to do. Running is always easy. Staying is hard. Facing your problems is hard. Being vulnerable is hard. But that's what separates boys from men, Carter. And right now, I need to know which one you are. I looked up at him. I'm here, Coach. I'm not running anymore. He studied me. Then he sighed and sat down. I hope that's true. Because we need you. Not just your talent. We need you to be a leader. To be someone the team can count on. Can you do that? Yes, I said, I can. Good, he said. Because if you disappear again, you're done. Not just with this team. With me. Understood? Understood. He nodded toward the door. Get dressed. Press conference in 30 minutes. And Carter? Yeah? Welcome back. The press conference was exactly as brutal as I expected. The room was packed, cameras everywhere, reporters leaning forward, hungry for a story. David stood off to the side, watching me like a hawk. I sat at the podium, adjusted the microphone, and waited for the first question. A reporter in the front row raised his hand. Carter, where have you been for the last week? I took some personal time to deal with some things I was going through, I said evenly. I know the timing wasn't ideal, and I apologize to my team, my coaches, and the fans for any concern I caused. Can you be more specific about what you were dealing with? No, I said. It's personal, and I'd like to keep it that way. Another reporter jumped in. There's been speculation that your disappearance was related to your recent breakup. Can you comment on that? I felt my jaw tighten. I glanced at David. He gave me a small nod. Stay calm. My focus right now is on basketball, I said. On helping my team win. That's all I'm going to say about my personal life. But the photos... Next question, I said firmly. A woman in the back raised her hand. Do you feel ready to play in the playoffs? Some have questioned whether you're mentally fit to compete at that level. I took a breath. This was the question that mattered. The one that would define how people saw me moving forward. I'm ready, I said. The last few weeks have been difficult. I'm not going to lie about that. But I've used this time to reflect. To reset, and I'm coming back stronger. Not just as a player, but as a person. I'm committed to this team. I'm committed to winning, and I'm going to prove that on the court. There were a few more questions. I answered them as best I could. Kept it professional, kept it vague. Didn't give them the drama they were hoping for. When it was over, I walked out of the room, feeling like I had just survived a battle. David caught up with me in the hallway. You did good, really good. Thanks, I said. Now what? Now you play, he said. And you remind everyone why you're one of the best in the league. Practice that afternoon was intense. Coach pushed us hard. Running drills, defensive sets, offensive schemes. He didn't go easy on me. If anything, he went harder. Testing me. Seeing if I would break. I didn't break. I kept up. Pushed through the exhaustion. Played with focus and intensity. By the end of practice, I was drenched in sweat, gasping for air. But I felt alive, like I had rediscovered something I had lost. After practice, I sat in the locker room staring at my phone. The burner was gone. I had thrown it away at the airport. This was my real phone, the one connected to everything. I had been avoiding turning it on, avoiding the flood of messages and notifications and reminders of the life I left behind. But I couldn't avoid it forever. I turned it on. The screen lit up. Hundreds of notifications, texts, calls, emails, social media mentions. I scrolled through them, feeling overwhelmed. Most were from people checking in, teammates, friends, family, people genuinely worried about me. A few were from reporters, looking for a statement, and buried in the middle was a message from her. I hesitated, then I opened it. I heard you're back. I'm glad you're okay. I know you don't want to talk to me, and I respect that, but I need you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I made mistakes. I handled things badly. And I'm sorry. I hope one day you can forgive me. I hope you find peace. You deserve it. I read the message 3 times, trying to decide how I felt. Anger, sadness, regret, all of it mixed together into something I couldn't name. Part of me wanted to respond, to tell her I forgave her, to tell her I still loved her, to tell her I wish things had been different. But another part of me knew that responding would only open old wounds, that some doors are better left closed. So I deleted the message, and I deleted her number. Not out of anger, not out of bitterness, but out of necessity, because I couldn't move forward if I was still holding on to the past. The first game of the playoffs was 2 days later. The atmosphere in the United Center was electric. 18,000 fans screaming, playoff intensity, everything on the line. We were playing the Bucks, a tough team, physical, well-coached. They had beaten us twice during the regular season. This was going to be a battle. In the locker room before the game, Coach gave his speech, talked about heart, about resilience, about proving ourselves. Then he looked at me. "Carter," he said, "you've been through hell these last few weeks, and I know you're still carrying some of that, but tonight I need you to leave it all behind. I need you to play like the man I know you are. Can you do that?" I nodded. "Yes, Coach." "Good," he said, "because this team is counting on you, and so am I." We broke the huddle and headed to the tunnel. The roar of the crowd hit me like a wave. I felt the adrenaline surge through my veins, the nerves, the excitement, the fear. But this time, it felt different. I wasn't running from it. I was embracing it. When we ran out onto the court, the crowd erupted. My name echoed through the arena. I looked up at the rafters, at the championship banners hanging there, and I made myself a promise. I was going to give everything I had. Not for the fame, not for the money, not for redemption, but for the love of the game, for my teammates, for myself. The game started fast. The Bucks came out aggressive, pressing us on defense, attacking the paint. We answered with speed and precision, back and forth. Every possession mattered. I played with a clarity I hadn't felt in months, moving without thinking, reading the defense, finding open teammates, taking smart shots. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just playing. By halftime, we were up by 8. In the locker room, Coach reminded us to stay focused. The Bucks were too good to let up. The third quarter was a grind. They went on a run, cut our lead to 2. The crowd got anxious, but we didn't panic. We trusted each other. We executed. I hit a 3 to push the lead back to 5. Jamal got a steal and finished with a dunk. Our defense locked in. By the end of the third, we were up by 12. The fourth quarter was a blur. The Bucks fought back, cut it to 6, then 4, then 2. The crowd was on their feet. Every possession felt like life or death. With 2 minutes left, Coach called a timeout. We were up by 3. He looked at me. "I'm giving you the ball," he said. "Make something happen." I nodded. When play resumed, I took the inbound pass and pushed the ball up the court. The defense collapsed on me. I saw Jamal cutting to the basket. I hit him with a perfect pass. He laid it in. Up by 5. The Bucks came back down and scored. Up by 3. We ran our offense. I got the ball on the wing, pump faked, drove past my defender, drew the help, kicked it out to our shooting guard. He hit the 3. Up by 6. The Bucks called timeout. 1 minute left. In the huddle, Coach reminded us to stay disciplined. Don't foul. Make them earn everything. The Bucks scored quickly. Up by 4. 40 seconds left. We ran the clock down. I got the ball at the top of the key. The defense was all over me. I dribbled, looking for an opening. The shot clock winding down. 5 seconds. 4. 3. I rose up and shot. The ball left my hand. Time seemed to slow. The arena held its breath. Swish. Up by 7. 20 seconds left. The Bucks tried one more time, but it was over. The final buzzer sounded. We won. 112-105. The crowd exploded. My teammates mobbed me. Coach was on his feet, pumping his fist. I stood in the middle of the celebration, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Joy. Pure, unfiltered joy. Not because of the win, not because of the stats, but because I had shown up. I had faced my fears. I had trusted my teammates. And I had remembered why I fell in love with this game in the first place. After the game, I sat in the locker room, still in my uniform, soaking it all in. My teammates were celebrating around me, music blaring, laughter echoing. The energy was infectious. Jamal sat down next to me. "Hell of a game, bro." "Thanks," I said. "You too." "You back?" he asked. "For real?" I looked at him. "Yeah, I'm back." He smiled and clapped me on the shoulder. "Good. We need you." Later, as I was leaving the facility, I saw my mother waiting by the exit. When she saw me, Her face lit up. She walked over and pulled me into a hug. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "Thanks, Mom. Not just for the game," she said, pulling back to look at me. "For coming back, for facing everything. That took real courage." I felt my eyes sting. "I'm still figuring it out." "That's okay," she said. "None of us have it all figured out. But you're trying, and that's what matters." We walked to the parking lot together. The night air was cool and clean. The city lights glowed in the distance. "You know," she said, "when you were a kid, you used to tell me that basketball made you feel free. Do you still feel that way?" I thought about it, about the game, about the way it felt to be on that court tonight, about the clarity and the focus and the joy. "Yeah," I said. "I do." She smiled. "Then don't ever lose that, no matter what happens, no matter who comes in or out of your life. As long as you have that, you'll be okay." I nodded. She was right. She was always right. As I drove home that night, I thought about everything that had happened: the betrayal, the pain, the escape, the return, the game. I thought about the old man in Mexico, about his words, about facing the shadows, about rebuilding. I thought about her, about the love I felt, about the hurt she caused, about the lessons I learned. And I realized something. I didn't need closure. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need validation or revenge or justice. I just needed to let go, to forgive, not for her, but for me, because holding on to the anger and the pain was only hurting myself, and I was tired of hurting. So I let it go, all of it, the resentment, the bitterness, the what-ifs. I released it into the night and drove on, toward the future, toward healing, toward the man I wanted to become. I didn't know what that future looked like. I didn't know if I would ever fall in love again. I didn't know if I would win a championship or flame out in the second round, but I knew one thing for certain. I was done running. I was done hiding. I was done letting fear control my life. From now on, I was going to show up, every single day, on the court and off. I was going to be honest, vulnerable, real. I was going to live my truth, whatever that looked like. And if people didn't like it, that was their problem, not mine. Because I had learned the hardest lesson of all. You can't control what other people do. You can't control how they see you. You can't control whether they love you or leave you. But you can control how you respond. You can control who you choose to be. You can control whether you let the pain define you or refine you. And I chose the latter. I chose to be stronger, wiser, more compassionate, more human. I chose to rebuild. Not the person I was before, but someone better. Someone who had walked through fire and come out the other side. Someone who knew that the only way to truly win was to stop running and start living. And as I pulled into my driveway that night, I looked up at the sky and smiled, because for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was home. Not in Chicago, not in my apartment, but in myself. And that was the only place I ever needed to be.